to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about Forest of the Dead and Silence of the Library, written by Stephen Moffat and directed by Euro Lynn. This is the two-parter of Series 4 that introduced River Song, Professor River Song, into the canon of Doctor Who. Of course, if you've been following us on this vlog series, you would know that technically this isn't the first time the Doctor has met River Song. We have tackled stories where she has met the Fourth Doctor, the First Doctor, the Third Doctor, and she's had close encounters with the Second Doctor as well as appearing alongside Henry Gordon Jago at one point in the series. But this is her first time that she became a big prominent character in the Doctor's life chronologically, and of course this being her first ever appearance in the televised series meant that the story is basically relying on us not knowing who she is, because at this point we didn't know who she was. This was her first appearance in the show, and she was played by none other than the legendary Alex Kingston. This story is written by Stephen Moffat, who would later go on to produce the series as showrunner. This is actually the last story in the Russell T Davies era where Russell T Davies didn't have a writing credit. Fun fact. And this feels like it is a precursor to what Stephen Moffat would do with the series. The story has a very fairy tale-like aesthetic with a little girl and a story playing out in her head with the biggest library in the universe. These elements feel a lot like they belong in a 11th Doctor story. So this is kind of like his warm-up, the kind of story that Stephen Moffat would tell in his era of the show. Whether that was the point, that was the case of all this, it's not too sure. Now, Stephen Moffat, of course, just coming off his greatest hit, not just his greatest hit, but one of the greatest hits in the entire Doctor Who canon with Blink. Russell T Davies gave him the opportunity to write a two-parter with basically the much creative freedom as possible, with Euro Lynn, who had been taking a break in Series 3, returning as director for the series. So that's a lot of things to tackle. I also will say that this story, it's good or bad, whatever you consider it, it does a lot. There's a lot of plot elements, there's a lot of plot points, and I know that just talking about this story for just under half an hour with my skills isn't going to be possible. So I am going to have to miss out a few details. If there's something that you wanted me to talk about, please message me below, and I'll be happy to have a conversation with you about a particular element of the story. But yeah, that's really the main gist of it. Before I go into the story though, I just want to state that there's actually a fan theory thanks to the title of the story. Later on in the series, we'd be introduced to a bad guy known as the Silence, a race of aliens, or presumably aliens, that when you see them, you can remember them, but when you turn your back, when you look away, you forget your entire encounter with them. And that also, and these aliens also tie in with River Song heavily. And with the first story in this episode, Silence in the Library, many people have suggested that this might actually be one of the few silent stories. However, because of their idea, because of their ability, that we don't actually see them, because our characters forget ever encountering them. I don't know how they would play into this narrative or how it would all tie in together, but that is a suggestion of what, and it really only comes because of the title and that River Song is in it. So there's some key elements and key moments. So let's get into the story at hand. We actually start off with this girl who seems to be meeting up with her psychiatrist, Dr. Moon, and they are talking about her dreams, and her dreams are always the same. Her dreams are going into this planet, just this massive library. It's a planet of a library, and it's completely empty. There's no one there, and the psychiatrist is trying to convince her that it's not real, despite it feeling extremely real. It's not, and we get some really great shots of the little girl hovering in the sky, and then suddenly, when she's in one of the rooms, she gets this knocking, this banging on the door, and she's terrified. She collapses onto the floor. She doesn't know how to handle this, what's going on. And then suddenly the door smashes open to reveal the Doctor and Donna. And they introduce him, like, hello there. Don't mind if we come into your library. And the girl opens her eyes. It's like, how can the Doctor be inside her fantasy? How can the Doctor be in this world? And that is our pre-credit sequence, and it really gets you invested in the storyline, in the narrative. And so when we come back into the story, then we actually see the Doctor and Donna actually just arriving in this library, just turning up, and the Doctor's discussing like how amazing these libraries are. Like, this is the biggest library in the universe. It's an entire planet-sized, just full of books, with the computer hard drive inside being one of the biggest index in the universe. But they notice something very odd, something very strange. The library is completely silent. There is no voice, no sound whatsoever. There is no one there except for those two. When the Doctor does a scan, he revised out that there are only two people in the library, him and Donna. But when he extends the definition of life, it turns out there are actually thousands upon thousands of living life forms in the library, and that is strange. Now, Donna also finds it strange how they arrived here. As Donna notes, the Doctor was planning on taking them to a amazing, wonderful holiday location before the Doctor suddenly decided to change his mind and go into this library. The Doctor reveals that he has a message on his psychic paper to come to the library at once with a cross, with an X, a kiss. And the Doctor kind of thinks this is kind of strange. Maybe it's a distress signal, but Donna's like, a distress signal with kisses? Come on, that's a bit strange. And the Doctor and Donna are trying to find out what's going on, and they discover that there's these statues with real life people's faces on them, and they seem to have had this message, this detail from the people who were lost in the library. Run. For God's sakes, run. And count the shadows. If you want to live, if you want to survive, count the shadows. And the Doctor and Donna are like, okay, there's this really strange atmosphere going on. And suddenly they find a corridor where the lights turn off, but it's completely black. Like, you can't see anything. This is a completely new form of darkness. And it turns off the lights simultaneously as it tries to come closer to the Doctor and Donna, and they start running, and then we get into the girl from the pre-credit sequence and her viewpoint. But it turns out that from the Doctor's and Donna's point of view, they've actually found a security camera, and apparently it seems to be alive, and it's somehow connected with the girl. When the Doctor tries to fiddle around with the security camera with his sonic screwdriver, it appears to be hurting the girl. And when the girl talks, saying "stop it," it comes up as text on the orb, on the security camera. And the Doctor's like, "Oh no, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you." And there's something strange. It's like, it seems like the security camera is alive. It has some sort of sentient intelligence. And it's very strange, and that's one of the aspects of the first episode, is that there's this mystery between who the girl is and how is she connected with this library, what the hell is going on, and that leads into some great scientific but also fairy tale like storytelling here, as this girl is basically experiences the Doctor's story in a sense. There's also some really great meta moments, like how she's watching the TV, she's watching Doctor Who, like the Doctor and the characters are all arguing and companion and stuff like that, and she's watching it on the TV. It's really, it's pretty funny. But anyway, suddenly more people have come in, a breach in the library security system, blocking, because it turns out that this planet has been a void of life for 3 decades, I think they said. And the automatic systems basically locked the planet off, only for a small group of people, led by this man whose family runs the library, to come in and basically find the Doctor and Donna. And it turns out they are some sort of archaeological expedition to find out what is going on, what has happened. And it's here that we get introduced to none other than River Song, played by Alex Kingston. Now here, because obviously this is our first time we're seeing her, the Doctor has no clue on who she is, and it leaves into, especially when you know who River Song is and their dynamic with one another, leaves for a lot of interesting moments with them. It also, Alex Kingston, I think we can all agree it's one of her best performances. Later on down the line, she will constantly try and sexualize River Song, which is nothing bad. I mean, you can do that, but this more restricted, a lot more collective River Song really works for her character, in my opinion. And slowly we get to realise that she is the one who sent the message. She is the one who sent the Doctor here, giving them for the help, and that she basically got the Doctor here to try and help them with the expedition, only to get the Doctor at the wrong time period, a bit too early, and this is actually their first encounter from his point of view, which leads into a very interesting dynamic. And what makes this story so great, what makes this story so perfect, is that we are tackling with a lot of ideas. I mean, we haven't even gotten to the villain yet. We got so much ideas, so much stuff to talk about in this story. But the story knows exactly how to play it. It doesn't rush elements. It allows every moment that it has to breathe. And that's what makes this story so memorable, so well executed, as we get introduced to each of these characters. And some of them may be stock. We have Proper Dave and Other Dave, which is a nice little gag. We have this girl who is, who the rest of the team are a bit annoyed at. She comes off as this character who is very childlike in mind, and she kind of thinks that everybody thinks she's stupid because she's pretty. And I love how Donna is just so kind to her, so sweet to her. And there's a scene in which this character's like, "Can I help?" And they're like, the rest of the expedition is like, "No, we're fine. Honestly, you just stand over there and do nothing." And Donna then goes up to them and goes, "Are you sure she can't do anything?" And they kind of explain to her that, like, that she is not particularly the brightest person in the room. And it's sad because she actually becomes our first victim to the shadows, in a very haunting moment. I mean, Euro Lynn is great at these little moments of slow scenes. A great example of his directing is actually from his first story, The End of the World, where we have the Doctor and Rose debating, and his directing style allows us to take a breather with little short moments. And adding that with Stephen Moffat's own moments of those twists, of those strange moments. I think Euro Lynn also did The Girl in the Fireplace. So it is kind of, I just realised these two stories are very similar in that they're very fairy tale-y for what you would imagine Stephen Moffat to do. But anyway, so the story then has this moment in which this girl, the door opens because in the universe of the girl in the house, she's been pressing buttons on her controller and it accidentally opens the door up as these books start flying for seemingly no reason, not realising that in this world where the girl sees them on the TV, she's kind of having this kind of scary tantrum in a sense. And we get this really terrifying moment where our characters are heavily debating. It seems like the leader of the expedition might be a bit of a jerk, as he doesn't tell the Doctor or Donna anything that might be helpful to seemingly protect his family legacy, and does his best to try and get them to sign a leaflet so that they can basically, by law, state something. But the Doctor and Donna, being, the rebellious ones, rip it up and straight in their face, which is a really fun moment how they both do it simultaneously. It's a really great moment. But anyway, this girl, she goes into this room and she discovers something and she starts screaming as the rest of the team just, like how the rest of the team are like, what the hell is that? But the Doctor is automatically on the run towards it. And they discover an empty room, but with a skeleton, one of the first bodies actually they found there. And that they are wondering where this girl is, and the Doctor's like, you've got to get out of here now. It's like, there's nothing here to harm us. She screamed, she must have been startled. Call her up now. And River's song starts calling her, but that the audio of River's voice is coming back through the skeleton suit. That girl is the skeleton. And then we come into one of the most horrifying scenes in the series, because Stephen Moffat, despite having a fairy tale aspect here, doesn't allow for his grim moments to be hidden away as we get into the ghosting element of this story. You see, each of the people of the expedition have these monitors on their suits, and when they die abruptly, their consciousness can sometimes be translated as if like an echo of some sorts of their emotions. They seem to be a little bit conscious after death, and they're basically listening to this girl's final words as she slowly is dying. And there's a really horrible moment in which she basically begs to talk to the nice girl, to the nice woman, which turns out to be Donna, and the Doctor encourages Donna to help her to speak to her, to try and comfort her in her last moments. And it's here that we get introduced to the motif of the repeating phrases, in which when these characters are dying on these monitors, they start saying the same phrase over and over and over again as their consciousness starts dying. It's a very horrible and disgusting death, but my God, it leads to some really cool scenes and brings up a new fascinating element of science fiction within this narrative. So that is some really cool moments. I really like that, and it's some really gripping drama. And the Doctor basically introduces them all to the main villains of the story. What's been causing this? Well, it seems to be little piranhas inside the shadows. The sentient shadow, essentially. Known only as the Vasta Narrata. Now, this is actually the first time they've appeared in Doctor Who in terms of an actual, in like real life. However, thanks to Big Finish, they've actually chronologically appeared before, during the 4th and 8th Doctor era in the classic Doctor's New Monsters box set volume 2, which I have not tackled for the marathon, so I do apologise for that. But the Doctor has met them before, and he's the only one here experienced so to know what to do. And we get a scene in which basically he's trying to tell everybody to get out here, to just run. But River is essentially trying to get the Doctor's trust into helping them to find out what's going on. There's a great moment in which the Doctor, he tries to send Donna back to the TARDIS using a teleport system, and he doesn't want basically these expedition to get their hands on the TARDIS, so he just teleports Donna whilst he tries to save the rest of the crew member. However, something happens to Donna's teleportation system as she gets into the TARDIS and she becomes like a primordial form, and then all of a sudden she starts screaming in pain as her vision in the TARDIS suddenly disappears. Very intense. That is a very haunting image, and it's just the imagination just runs wild in this story. And the Doctor later on tries to is like, hold on, I should have gotten a signal of Donna appearing inside the TARDIS. We also have a bit where River reveals that she's got her own sonic screwdriver, which is actually a future version of the Doctor's current sonic screwdriver. And she also seems to have knowledge that not even the Doctor has, mentioned in red settings on the sonic screwdriver of feedback circuits. She also mentions how the Doctor in the future can open the Doctor's TARDIS by just a click of his fingers, and the Doctor's just like, I've got to save Donna, I've got to go, you don't know me, that's not how the TARDIS works, that's not how the sonic screwdriver works. And River's song essentially is like, I'm sorry Doctor, but I need you to trust me in that I'm doing good, and that we need to save these people, we need to focus on these individuals first. And I'm going to tell you something, and it's going to break you, and I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, but I need you to trust me now. And she whispers into his ear, and we don't find out until the end of the story on what it is, but it shocks the Doctor to his very core. David Tennant's reaction is beautiful. His stunned, but this kind of revelation into his face is it's just utterly beautiful. It's just utterly astonishing. And David Tennant, it just works. It's just borderline on cheesy, but my God, it works. It just goddamn works. And so the Doctor tries to talk to one of the statues of where Donna is, what happened to Donna Noble, only for the statue to turn around and to reveal Donna Noble's face, stating that Donna Noble has been rescued, Donna Noble has been saved. And that is our cliffhanger. That is a really, really good cliffhanger right there. It's intense, it's a thing. And earlier on in the story, it was stated that these statues have the faces of dead people. So this scene kind of implied that Donna had died, and that is just it gets your heart racing as a few of the expedition have also started dying. They have these visors, but when the Vasta and Arata kill them, it's skeletons, and the last word that they start repeating with one of them saying, "Hey, who turned off the lights?" Hey, who turned off the lights? Is constantly repeating that, and this goes into a lot of Stephen Moffat's cliches as a writer. Like he loves this kind of moments where we hear something, where there's something in the background, and our characters and we as an audience viewer don't realise what's happening until the characters start clicking in, and the repetitiveness of it becomes overwhelming. And yeah, sure, it's something that Stephen Moffat has done before. and it has become a bit of a cliche at this point. But it is kind of his writing style, and it's something that it just generally works as a storytelling method. It's something that's unique to him, but it also works in terms of a narrative style and a narrative thread, which keeps the engagingness of the viewers interested, because we as a viewer are also at certain points try and figure out what's going on. So part 2, we actually discover that Donna Noble has appeared in the same innocent world as the little girl, and she actually meets then Dr. Moon, who seems to have some sort of mind control over Donna, as he basically is like, yes, I came into your room and we've met for like 3 years now, and now you remember. And then Donna's like, oh yeah, sorry, Dr. Moon, sorry, I didn't recognize you there. I must be going on a blip. And I love how there's something else this story does as well, which I absolutely love. It plays with the narrative's structure of television. With the girl, she's kind of watching Doctor Who at some point. She is watching Doctor Who on the TV like we are, and there's that meta feeling. And then later on with this Donna moment, we get scenes in which it cuts, where it keeps cutting. So like she's talking to Dr. Moon in her room in the hospital, and then outside they're walking, and then onto a lake. And Donna kind of notices, it's like, hold on, we were just in my room and now we're walking. Wait a minute, we were just walking and now we're in by the lake. And Dr. Moon is trying to basically convince her that it's just normal, she's just forgetting. And we also have moments where she seems to be interested with this guy in a stutter. I can't remember his name. I can't remember if his name's actually mentioned in a way which is full on onto the camera. But basically they live this entire life where she gets married to this man. They actually have 2 kids, and they seem to be enjoying a very normal life. However, something strange, an individual with a veil over her face seems to be trying to get Donna's attention. She sends a letter through Donna's door stating, to find out the truth, you must come meet me in your usual place at the park. And so it cuts then to Donna talking to this veiled woman in the park as she lets her kids play in the park with those other kids, which I love this scene, because when you realise the twist, what's going to happen, and watch it back, you can see the twist already in play, already in motion. And it's something that Stephen Moffat, again, it's Stephen Moffat's thing. This story has so many Stephen Moffat-y elements. But again, it really works here. And I think Euro Lynn knows Stephen Moffat's style and knows exactly how he wants this scene to play out. And we have Donna and the Veil woman talking, and the Veil is like, no, we didn't meet you until the day after. Donna's like, oh yeah, I got your message yesterday. But there's like, the Veil girl's like, no, you got it only seconds ago. Your entire life has been a lie. This entire thing has been a lie. And all of this has just happened to you, has happened within a few minutes. As like we as an audience viewer have witnessed it, as if like Donna Noble is in somehow a movie of some sorts. Her life has been played out like a movie. And it turns out this Veiled woman is actually the very bright little girl the bright girl that Donna befriended in the library, who got turned into a skeleton. And because she wasn't technically saved by the data core, she has actually deformed somewhat. She's lost her beauty in her face. However, because she's not a complete copy of her normal self, she's actually gained huge intelligence, which allows her to see this world for what it really is. And she tries to get Donna to realise this is a lie. this is not real. And she makes her believe by looking at the children. Look at all the children, every children. They're exactly the same boy, the same girl, just repeated over and over. Same clothes, same look, same faces, just everything. And Donna looks around and sees all of these children playing, but they all look the same. And it's terrifying because she can believe that this world is not real. She starts to click together. She remembers the library. She remembers these moments. But her losing her children, she just cannot believe that. These kids are real to her. They must be real. A lot of moments then happen with Doctor and River. Basically, we get a bunch of chase scenes and a lot of moments on which the Vasta Narata are coming close, and the Doctor's trying to puzzle in why are they attacking, what's going on. The Vasta Narata are everywhere, even on Earth, but they don't usually swarm and fight and kill people like this. What's going on? And the Doctor actually tries to discuss with one of them using the repeating phrases on the ghosting method. And the Vasta Narata basically explains that they are in the forest. They are in the forest of the Vasta Narata. And the Doctor's like, no, there's no forests here. There's only books. Books are made out of wood. Wood from the forest. The forest of the Vasta Narata. Millions upon millions of spawns appeared in this library, and they are somehow activated in a way that will harm and kill humans. And the Doctor is stunned by this and tries to reason with them, but for the most part fails. And so the Doctor and River and the expedition goes down to basically the core of the planet to try and find out what's causing Cal to and what happened to the mystery of everybody else all those years ago. It turns out that the library, the computer system, knew that the Vasta Narata are attacking and sent all these people teleporting. However, because of the system and state, they couldn't actually be teleported anywhere. They couldn't have been teleported to another side of the planet because Vasta Narata are everywhere. So what did the data core system do? It saved them. It stored them like emails ready to be sent out. And that is where Donna, and that is where the little girl is. And we go down into the heart of the planet, essentially. And then we discover what the leader of the expedition, what he was protecting. It turns out that he wasn't protecting his family legacy in terms of a business strategy. It turns out that Cal is his aunt, his grandfather's youngest daughter from many years ago, who was suffering from this illness, and the family basically made her into a sentient computer, keeping her alive forever. Only a half-life, but a life just the same. And she loved books, she loved libraries, and so they made this giant library dedicated to Cal, the little girl. And the Doctor realizes that basically all of those people stored in its memory is essentially making her mad, and might actually be the thing that antagonizes the Vasta Narata. And so the Doctor is hell-bent on saving everybody and is processing some of the materials. We get a really great moment in which one of the Vasta Narata is threatening the Doctor as the Doctor is basically trying to get everybody back. And the Doctor's just like, I'm done pretending to be the nice guy. You have access to the biggest library in the universe, and I am the Doctor. Look me up. And the Vasta Narata then backs out. It comes crawling back and basically tells the Doctor he has 1 day. And so the Doctor essentially sets up this program to try and relieve the strain on the computer to bring everybody back. But it couldn't do it alone, and so he's going to try and process himself into the machine. But it would kill him, and River Song realizes this, and so she just knocks the Doctor out, punching him square in the face. And the Doctor wakes up to discover that River Song has tied herself up to the machine, ready to sacrifice herself for everybody else. And we get the revelation that the Doctor's first encounter with River Song was her last, and that she had this realization now. Every time they've met, from her point of view, the Doctor's always known how she was going to die, how she was going to be sacrificing herself to save so many people. And the Doctor also reveals that the word that made him instantly trust her was his name, his real name. This has been a storyline which has appeared since the very inception of Doctor Who. What is the Doctor's real name? And it has had a few storylines dedicated to it here and there. But this, I believe, is the first time it's become a prominent idea in the revived series. The last time it was a big factor in the Doctor Who canon was during the so-called Cardinal Master Plan during the 7th Doctor era, for those of you interested. So whether we are technically tying it back to the Cardinal Master Plan and revealing that his name is something far more important than just a name for this Time Lord that we just doesn't like to say, who knows? And so River Song sacrifices herself, and we get scenes on basically Donna's world is going red as everybody's being sent back, as their world is basically ending and getting back into the normal reality. And there's one scene which, not that it's happened to me, but I've had a moment like it that was very similar. And when I watched this for the first time when it aired, it petrified me. When I had something very similar to it, you do not know how terrifying this moment is. The moment of her children. The children are like, Mum, we don't feel real, we don't understand. And Donna's just like, yes, you are real, and I will never look away from you ever. And she's just about to kiss one of them, only for them to just disappear. And Donna's just breaking down in tears as her children have just vanished, and there is nothing she can do about it as the world starts breaking down around them. That is horrifying. And I won't go into specifics here because it's something really personal, but I've had a similar moment which didn't, end so bad for me. It was a happy revolution, and but to be in that situation is just where you think your kids or the youngest people in your family just disappear like that, like they've been kidnapped and stuff, it's just really horrifying. It's just not a good place to be. But this story does a great job at implementing in this story and making you really feel for Donna, making you really feel for this moment and how, in a way, they've saved the world. But Donna has lost so much due to it. She's lost this life that she supposedly had, the love of her life, her 2 children. And the story kind of ends with the Doctor and Donna. They're thinking about it. Donna basically is like, is all right Time Lord slang for completely not all right? Because if that's the case, I'm all right too. And they have this moment where they put the River Song's diary down and her future sonic screwdriver. The Doctor and Donna are like, we can have a peek. We can find out why she didn't know you, Donna. Shall we? All of our secrets are in this book. And Donna essentially goes, no, we should not. And they walk off. And we have this speech by Alex Kingston where it's like, everybody knows that everyone dies, but not every day. As the Doctor starts running back, picks up his sonic screwdriver. I've had all that time to know that she was going to die. My future self knew exactly how she was going to die and end up here. And all I did was give her a screwdriver? Why would I do that? And he opens up a little compartment, revealing that he saved her as the ghosts in McEdam is on the sonic screwdriver. And the Doctor starts running, probably the most heroic run of David Tennant's career, as he runs straight down to the basement. There's a bit where he goes up to the elevator and he sets up an emergency thing, so the platform just goes straight down, and the Doctor just jumps, and he has this like really epic like Superman moment as he is just falling down head first through this gravity tunnel, which is really, really corny, but this scene has built this up, and it's one of the final moments. And as the Doctor's running to get the sonic screwdriver plugged into the computer, to which he does, and River Song appears within the computer's database and discovers that her soul, or some part of her, has survived in some way, shape or form, and that her consciousness has survived in this world where it's now been restored. The girl isn't influence that this place is real, and that it's a much happier place. It's a place for mourning and awe-inspiring. And it turns out that the Doctor's also saved the memories, or at least the girl implies that she brought them here with the help of the Doctor, of River's friends throughout the story. And that concludes the two-parter, Silence of the Library and Forest of the Dead. So overall, this is considered by many as one of the best Doctor Who stories of all time, if not just under Blink. And it's hard to argue why. It's greatly paced, it's full-packed, it just seems to fit with the Doctor having some of his best moments, Donna having some of her best moments, the introduction of River Song in easily one of her best stories, both within so far and just overall, and the concepts and the ideas that it plays with the narrative of storytelling and television in general, but allows it to tell a genuine story about love and loss and joy and sorrow. And it's easily considered one of the best, and it's easily to see why. So there you go, that's Silence of the Library and Forest of the Dead. So join me next time when the Doctor takes Donna back to her hometown as a global threat starts threatening the world, as Wilfred introduces the entire family to his new girlfriend. So join me next time for Beautiful Chaos, and I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!